Keep walking, though there's no place to get to. Don't try to see through the distances. That's not for human beings. Move within, but don't move the way fear makes you move. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty that we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So welcome to you all. At the moment I'm a bit of a technophobe and I seem to have lost my my partner, but he's somewhere out there and I'm sure the technology will reveal him to me. Are you there, Tony?
Yes. Can you see me now?
Now, and I'm going to pin you. I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Yes, it's all open this end. Should be all right.
Great.
Tell me when you can see me.
I can see you. I can see all is well.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that we can't actually get to meet each other in person, which was the intention.
Yeah.
But, you know, the world is the way the world is, and we are where we are, and we'll do the best we can, which we've been trying to do. And how do you prepare for an evening speaking about truth if not to show up? We've had a few discussions, haven't we?
We have.
And thought about how this might work, and we really see it as a sort of a Sufi ramble, and bringing my poetry and some others and your sort of bardic wisdom in as we sort of journey our way through up and down the ladders. So I welcome you all. For me, it's on a very muddy hilltop just outside Bath. The rain is howling and wind and all the rest of it. It's as muddy as can be out there. But in here, a little bit of peace on this beautiful evening in the sense of, you know, our time of year, the solstice and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunct and all the powerful astrological wanderings that are going on. And so for those of you who don't know me, my background is as a psychotherapist and a Sufi poet. And I also started the practice rooms, which are therapy centers around England. And I've known you, Tony, about 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So maybe you'd like to say a little bit about yourself and take us into a little meditation just to kick the evening off.
Sure. Well, hello, Ayaz, and first of all, thank you for welcoming me in and including me and inviting me to do this with you. We've not done this before, and it's a little strange, so I have a few butterflies cooking away in my tummy, like the beginning of a journey. Yeah. I too am sorry that we can't actually be together in the same room. It's a very different thing to be close together. So we shall see how we shall go. Also to say that at this moment it's a little strange. It's not strange speaking with Ayaz, although it's always strange speaking with Ayaz. But what's strange is that there are other people, so I'm welcoming you whom I can't see. So that seems to be close to the nature of what we're doing tonight as well, sort of opening in a trusting way. So we shall have a conversation, and the odd though it is, you are really wish to include you in what we're saying. My name's Tony. My Sufi name is Gayan, which was given to me by Pir Elias, the Sufi tradition. I've worked as a psychotherapist for a good number of years, and I'm also a painter. So in one way, why and how I've arrived here tonight is an interest in poetry, and it might be more accurate to say that poetry in the last 20 years has had an interest in me. And by that, I mean it likes to take hold of me and shake it up and surprise me. So that's always welcome, although sometimes uncomfortable. So as I said, we will try and go on a ramble, which has its kind of source in a way as poetry, but we will ramble to where it takes us. So at times we may read, other times we may just speak about what's evoked, as in the spirit of being spontaneous and how we're moved. So just like to introduce everybody into a very short meditation to put us in the way of going into the evening, opening to what's going to emerge. I'd like to invite you to imagine you are in a place. The image that comes to me is being firstly in the landscape. So if you connect with your breathing first off, feel your weight on the chair, or if you're lying down, feel the weight in your connection with the earth. Being with that, the image which has come up for me to do with our night tonight and looking to what is truth is something of being at the estuary and the tide coming in and watching the tide coming up to its fullness. And if you can imagine you watching a little twig on the top of the water, and it's reached the point where it seems to have stopped going in one direction, and it's wondering about whether to go in the other direction or not. And at that moment, it's almost stasis. And for me, that brings a slight, almost holding of breath. So I invite you to be with that for a few moments, and I will ring a bell to bring us out.
Let this darkness be a bell tower. Rilke. Quiet friend who has come so far. Feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower and you the bell. As you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. Move back and forth into the change. What is it like? Such intensity of pain. If the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. In this uncontainable night, be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses, the meaning discovered there. And if the world has ceased to hear you, say to the silent earth, I flow. To the rushing water, speak, I am.
I've heard you speak that a few times, Ayaz, and each time you speak it, a different aspect resonates. So I was sort of wondering, would you say something about what first drew you to that poem?
Well, so many things. And I've found Rilke is a profound mystic and a real influence on my poetry. And I love his depth and his non-dual perspective. He's truly a mystical poet. And for me, the non-dual, which is what we're going to be kind of exploring a bit, is the essence of what we're talking about this evening. Christmas is the birth of truth. And he has such beautiful lines like, if the drink is bitter, turn yourself into wine, which for me, and, I talk often to my daughter, Lily, who's kind of a student, and bemoaning the current crisis and the current problems and the current issues. I mean, obviously she's not alone. We're all in the same boat. But, what I say to her is, look, we are where we are. You have a choice. You don't have a choice about what's happening, but you do have a choice about how you respond to that. So you don't have a choice about drink being bitter, but you do have a choice about turning yourself into wine. And it's that shift and the beauty of that imagery, which I find very, very deep. And actually, I'll follow that up with a short poem. And going onwards, if I don't say who the poet is, it's because it's me.
Okay.
So this is mine, and it's called Weather Like Truth. Weather like truth is what shows up where I am. The sun is always shining, and clouds pass. Show up, stay put, and all will be revealed.
Would you mind, in the time-honored way, rereading it? Second take. Yeah.
Weather like truth is what shows up where I am. The sun is always shining, and clouds pass. show up, stay put, and all will be revealed. And I suppose I'd like to think about, you know, the message. If there's a message for me this evening, it's about showing up and staying put.
What do you mean by staying put? That's an interesting, yeah.
When the going gets tough,
Right.
I ain't going anywhere.
No.
And I feel so passionate, and that's what I think a lot of what I want to convey in my poetry is about that passion through the suffering, at depth in the suffering, and really feeling that is what we're talking about, and it shows up here and now. It doesn't happen somewhere else. So staying put is being present, even though it's tough, even though I might not like what's coming. So firstly, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but I'm chuckling a little bit because I always feel like I'm someone who would love to be that certain. So it's I get what you mean, and it's lovely. But perhaps I could just throw in a little. It's not exactly contrary to what you're saying, but it's sort of another variation of how you say staying put or not. And it's by Seamus Heaney, and it's interesting that, you know, wanting to speak about the birth of truth at this time of Christmas, and how do you do that, and how do you bring your own spirit into that, as well as the great messages we have from great traditions, and in fact looking at people that might, different poets, there's people from all around the world actually. There's Irish, there's Persian, there's Spanish, there's Italian, there's American. So this is a little one from Heaney, who Seamus Heaney, interestingly, he died a few years ago, and it actually, here we go. I was going to read you a little piece, but now what's happening is I'm remembering that Heaney, he had a heart attack some years ago, and then he died about 3 years ago. And I was going on holiday down to one of the places I go to in Pembrokeshire, where for many years I like to go and wander through the dunes, because it's got lots of herbs, and you can go and pick herbs and cook them or whatever, you know. And I've been doing that for years. And then one day I got there and I was about to go off into the dunes for one of my annual trips and camping as I was. And there was this big sign saying, "Beware the adders, they like to lie in the dunes." I've suddenly, oh my God, no, oh shit, here we go. and suddenly my returning joy and beauty of being in the wilderness was like gripped. And it so happened that Heaney had died that year. And the last thing he wrote, which chimes with your "I'm not going anywhere," because I couldn't quite get it first when you said it with such certainty. You know, his last message to his wife on the mobile was "Ne timere, ne timere, do not be afraid." So I suddenly got this whoa back into my body, and remembered I could go and stamp on the ground to frighten off the adders. Because they'd probably have heard my vibration a mile away anyway. So this is something Heaney wrote. So he's very dear to my heart. And
that's so beautiful what you just said.
Oh,
I feel very touched.
Okay, yeah. This happens, doesn't it? We set out with a plan, and some little side turn tells me to go down there. Thank you. It's called The Poplar. Wind shakes the big poplar, quicksilvering the whole tree in a single sweep, quicksilvering the whole tree in a single sweep. What bright scale fell and left this needle quivering? What loaded balances have come to grief? What loaded balances have come to grief? Oh. I'm moved to add something to the conversation that's emerging, which was, which is that maybe I sometimes have difficulty with certainty because of my conditioning with certainty and what it means. And yet when you say I'm not going anywhere, I know, because I know the style in which you say it is different to what flows through you. So what loaded balances have come to grief speaks to me of the same thing, that there's something, irrespective of all of the moods and the weathers of the heart, there's something in us that's unshakable. Yeah.
And yes. And, I speak quite a bit about faith.
Yeah.
And what we mean by faith. And I think it alludes to this that we're talking about. Knowing nothing. I almost know enough to know that I know nothing and should say less. True wisdom, like the sky, has wide enough arms to hold all, forgive all, bless all. And it's that it's not that I know anything, it's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's not the I that knows.
No.
It's a knowing that is much more than the I. And I feel when I'm in the poetry vein, in the line, it's not me that's writing. I'm being written through. That's how it feels. And that's why it's so effortless. And there's so much garbage that I do write, rubbish that I write, when I'm trying to do something, when I'm trying to write something. But when I I might be scribbling away and a line comes, and then around the line, something begins to build.
Yeah.
And I'll give you another one. What does it matter? What's true?
Okay.
What does it matter? What's true? What matters is where I'm tender. Tenderness is like a whisper from the depths. A warm breeze that still smells of yesterday's roses. Reminding me I'm still a light. Smoldering even with the fire you put in me so long ago, ready at any moment to burst into flame.
Yeah. So sounds like with you that the process of being open to the flow, it comes and goes. Sometimes you're trying and you're doing too hard, but other times it comes through you, it flows through. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely a coming and going. It's not something that I can do.
Yeah.
And it comes from a place, I think, of putting myself in the way of.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're the same.
Yeah.
In different ways. But
yeah. at the risk of going off our journey or making it too intellectual, I have to trust. I'm wondering about this, like we're talking about the I not being here, I being out of the way, and sometimes, you know, the so-called rubbish or the difficult, the beginnings or the you know, the stuff that's discarded, if you like, you know, the shucks after do they both conspire? You know, does the first part, is that part of the truth as well?
I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think it's my my small peddling.
Yeah.
You know, my smallness, my attempt to be something, my attempt to be someone. Yeah. You know, I mean, one of the joys of speaking on this, I think, is that, you know, we have to follow our own we have to follow our own truth. We have to follow what we're talking about. We have to, you know, speak as we act as we speak. You know, so demand is it's beholden upon us here now, you and I, to be truthful. I mean, much though we might wish to do something else and have prepared things and be able to go through one poem after the other, actually showing up and staying put means bearing the unknowing and the unknown, to trust that we will. I remember Pierre Elias saying to us that something along the lines of, get into that space and you will be looked after, you will be provided for. Wow. Let go of the anxiety and the fear and hang in there, and what will need to come through will. And I'm learning that. I've definitely not learnt it, but I'm learning. And it's a great joy.
Yeah.
And it's great joy. That's why it's great joy doing it with you, frankly, because, you know, you and I, we tease each other out and we hold each other to account. And you won't let me kind of ramble off onto some sort of heady philosophical rant. You know, and you haul me back. And I think that's really very useful.
Call you back to where?
Pull me back to nowhere.
But it's true, yeah. I mean, I'm really interested in that sort of dynamic and like being open to, you know, it's very difficult, isn't it? As you know, like we spend so much time needing to develop a sense of I and an ego and the need to have that standing in the world. And yet the invitation here from truth is kind of like shaking something up again. It's shaking that up. And so it's being open to the fresh. And I came across a little piece that I'd never come across before. I was flipping through what could be a new thing to bring in, as well as how I experience it. So I looked up Kathleen Raine, and there's a beautiful little piece here called Self. And it's so lovely. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I who speaks from the dust? Who am I who looks from the clay? Who hears from mute stone? For fragile water fields with finger and bone? Who for the forest breathes the evening, sees for the rose? Who knows? Who knows? I keep shifting it. It's interesting. I was first seeing it like who as a challenge, and actually the depth of it is like he's asking, who is this one? Who knows? Who is this one? Who am I? Who am I? Who knows what the bird sings? Because complete mystery. Who am I? who for the sun fears the demon dark, in order holds atom and chaos, who out of nothingness has gazed on the beloved face. So who's that? Shall I read it? Shall I read it again?
Please do.
Because it's kind of
Really is.
yeah. So simple, but it's so profound in a way. Who am I? Who speaks from the dust? Who looks from the clay? Who hears from the mute stone? For fragile water fields with finger and bone. Who for the forest breathes the evening? Who for the forest breathes the evening? Sees for the rose. Who knows what the bird sings? Who am I? Who for the sun fears the demon dark? In order holds atom and chaos. Who out of nothingness? Who out of nothingness? Who out of nothingness has gazed on the beloved face? I need to just move away for a second because my charger needs to be reinserted. Excuse me.
How perfect.
Yeah, isn't that perfect?
Who has gazed on the beloved's face?
Yeah.
I just need to put my charger in.
Yeah.
You know, that's the juxtaposition of form and formlessness in action. Isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's you know, here we come to this perfect sort of beautiful spot. And then the mundane. What's happened to my charger?
Yep.
Never answer questions. Because freedom is not about the locking and unlocking of doors. But the discovery of the internal sky. Not a place, even, or an experience. Call it perhaps the gap between things, where nothing is true. The gap between things, where nothing is true. To come to know this, watch birds, stargaze, and never answer questions.
Who's that from?
Me.
Oh, yeah. It's got your flavor, yeah. Yeah.
Whoever me is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So interesting that we're, you know, wondering about this time of year and, you know, truth and what the truth is and what's inside and what's outside and the mirrors, the powerful mirrors that are around at the moment. And I only discovered this morning or something about this conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and it's the first in 800 years. I get this sort of, yeah, I've lost my thread there now. What was I saying? Pull me back.
Well, you're saying about Jupiter and that you kind of hadn't, you only just crocked that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's more around, it's more that was the kind of, yeah, something around this time of year, and the message, and the return of the sun, and the solstice, which we are tonight, and then the great Christian, the truth arriving, and so on.
The Christ child.
Yeah. And I guess in most of what I've picked out and what we've picked out, it does seem to be in some way trying to point to like letting go of the known, and that it's a great opportunity when Christmas arrives to open up again and to be generous if you're not generous. And so there's a lot of it's a powerful time when that can happen in its truth, rather than the sort of the commercialization of everything.
Yes. And it's a metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which we've talked about before. Is a metaphor for the present moment. The present moment is born every moment.
Yeah.
So Christmas actually is every moment.
Yeah, sure.
We celebrate it as a ritual once a year.
Yeah.
Which is totally aligned with the return of the light.
Yeah.
But it's also in every moment. And that is in the Christmas Carol, Scrooge speaks when he finally sees the light and crocs it. He speaks about Christmas as being every day.
Sure. And I suppose we need all these poets, and we need these people, and we need all kinds of music and whatnot to remind us how out of touch we get with it.
Yes.
And we need each other to remind each other, to remember each other,
Yes.
where it comes from, because I lose it so frequently,
and we're helping each other across the bridge. I mean, that's how I see it, and that's how I see us serving each other.
Yeah.
To the extent that there isn't each other, even. Who's serving who here?
Well, I'm sort of slightly lost just now, but where I was sort of, something was kind of coming in terms of the personal and individual, and I've got a piece by Robert Bly. Well, it's his adaptation of The Third Body, which brings us back into the need for connection and relationship and all the struggle, because that's where we get reminded of something, there's lots of ways to say it, something beyond, something bigger, there's all kinds of phrases, but I'll read this one. It's The Third Body. And a woman and her lover sit near each other, and they do not long at this moment to be older or younger, nor born in any other nation or time or place. They are content to be where they are, talking or not talking. Their breaths together feed someone who we do not know. The woman sees her lover's fingers move. She sees her hands close around a book she hands to her. They obey. It's beautiful. They obey a third body they have in common. They have made a promise to love that body. Age may come, parting may come, death will come. A woman and her lover sit near each other. As they breathe, they feed someone that we do not know, someone we know of, whom we have never seen.
That reminds me of, Rilke's notion of solitude and being the guardian, his sort of definition of relationship as being the guardian of each other's solitude.
Yeah.
This third party.
Yeah.
Solitude.
There's another piece. I don't know. Maybe we're starting to flow with too many pieces now. What do you think?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think I'm going to land one on you in a second by just asking you to do a freestyle bardic recitation for us.
Oh, he didn't tell me that was going to happen.
Exactly. I knew you'd be able to ramble into it and find something that just pops in or doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you'll kill me afterwards, but you'll handle it in the present.
Yeah, well, you're going to die lots of times anyway.
But what whilst you think of that and contemplate that.
Well, hold on a sec.
Oh yeah, okay. Come on.
Not so fast. You mean you want me to conjure something completely bardic out of nowhere, or you want me to bring in something that's in the memory, in the heart?
Something that's in the heart.
That's something memorized. Yeah. Memorized. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Which we'll ramble into.
Sure. Bump into it.
I suppose what gets me fired up as well, is when, and I quite enjoy it, is talking about Christ consciousness and the birth of the Christ child. Partly because I know it's so laden with history and story and terrible things that have happened in the name of it.
Yeah.
And you yourself, with your story and your history and I know, resist it a bit. But I don't, but there's something so profound about it, which is missed in the conventional speaking of the faith.
Sure.
And it's a great thing, and it's allegorical, and it should be filling churches with people. And they should be in there and they should be singing and alleluiaing. And the fact they're not is the point. And the fact that the church closes its doors when right in the middle of this crisis, humanitarian crisis that we're suffering, tells you everything you need to know, really, for me, about it. But before, this isn't a place to rant, I know, so I'm going to just let go of that and speak to you the birth of truth.
Okay.
Trees don't follow convention by filling themselves with stars in winter. Nor do songbirds gather in pews to sing the dawn chorus. No, truth is what shows up at the crossroads. Truth is what shows up at the crossroads, where time and space are crucified. Crucifixion, don't forget, is not about something that happened to someone else on a dusty hill a while back, but to you and I, here and now. And the question is, can you and I stand still long enough to have ourselves be reduced one sorrow at a time? One sorrow at a time, reduced into a rich sky that can, like the trees, fill itself with stars and behold itself newborn.
Phew. Phew. Yeah. Phew.
Reminds me of that lovely phrase, to bear the gaze long enough to be of service. Bear the gaze. Can we stand still long enough to have ourselves be reduced?
To be reduced one by one. One sadness at a time. Was that what it said?
One sorrow at a time.
One sorrow at a time. Ah. Okay.
And sometimes, like London buses, sorrows come, not single spies, but in battalions.
Yeah.
Drifting a little bit of Shakespeare.
Sure. Yeah. What do you make of that, being reduced one sorrow at a time? How do you feel that?
Well, I think about that, you know, as a psychotherapist and all my training and all the stuff that, you know, I feel like all the people who've challenged me over the years and still do, that each time a plank comes out, you know, each time I feel a little bit less afloat in some way. You know, my defenses are reduced. And that rather than fighting against those sorrows, it's kind of expanding the vessel.
Mm-hmm.
And widening the embrace to allow.
So reduced, not to be too analytical, but it's like becoming more essential.
Exactly.
In that
like
sense.
Gravy, you know, or you know, one of those beautiful sauces they whip up.
Yeah.
And
so when you, so then it's not a reduction and a lessening, it's a reduction and a more essentialness. So it's okay.
It's an evaporation of that which I don't need.
Yeah.
And what do I need at the crossroads?
What do you need? It's a good question. You don't know. Do you know?
Nothing.
Yeah. Wasn't the invitation to be with the earth and to connect in?
Yeah. I mean, that's the invitation, and you know, the kind of the point that I suppose that's the point is I need nothing.
Yeah.
At the crossroads. Because I am that. And that's the place of discovery. And the crossroads, you know, the crossroads, the where time and space meet, where this is it here now in this moment.
Okay.
How are you feeling right now in this moment?
How am I feeling? Not sure. Little uncertain about something. Yeah. Perhaps it's because you've asked me to do a memorize something, or yes, I'm kind of with the imagery of I don't know. It's an interesting. There's a little. It's not quite sure in my belly. There's a kind of quaveriness, and the image of the crossroad is really such a powerful image, such a powerful reference, and I have the image of trees swaying and moving, and And something about that kind of like that everything we do on the way is part of arriving at the place where you're open. And like, I suppose I have difficulty sometimes because of my struggle with I guess conditioning and religion and ways of seeing things. So I've lost it now again. There's something about the crossroads and about staying open to that which is mutable, which is changing, and yet we kind of bring something firm or something that can experience it, like in the body, like something fixed as well. And I guess sometimes the invitation seems to be, this is my struggle, okay, the invitation is to dissolve or let go, and you have to have, well, maybe you don't have to have anything for that. That's the point. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I guess there's a charge with certain language. There's a charge with what I'm trying to say is the aspiring to something can inadvertently and paradoxically make where one is right now not also part of the journey. But of course, that's not the case. Yes, I'm
sorry.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a challenge, but it's also coming from a slightly not sure place. I mean, I was wondering about actually. There is a piece by Hafiz, which I kind of know, but not quite by heart, but I know it sort of quite well, which speaks to the sadness that I actually feel at the moment. And it's something to do with the struggle to know, or the struggle to be okay, or the struggle to have recognition and to be accepted by people, and how deeply that can run sometimes. So when I was studying with a bard in Wales, I may have told you this story before, but it seems relevant. He invited us to, we were invited to learn something that spoke to our heart very deeply, whether it was a story from our tradition or anywhere, and to bring it back and then to speak it. And I was terrified, just really terrified of this. And on the day when we were going to do our deliveries, he's a very kind of larger than life kind of character. So he brought us on this walk across the mountains, Pennant Valley. And during that, we went to this old Christian church, and it had lots of yew trees in the gardens. So it had been a pagan place, and then it was converted, I suppose. Anyway, when my turn came to tell the story, I kept getting it wrong. I kept, oh my God, did I say this bit? Did I say that bit? I just lost it because we'd had a few drinks on the way back, because too terrified to be saying no to the great bard, but also wanting to join in. So I felt a bit crushed in that moment. And I went and sat down, and then someone got up and spoke this poem, which spoke straight to my heart. And it also speaks to the great struggle, I believe, that I have and a lot of people can have around this time of year, the effort to make meaning out of it for ourselves, and how we can feel we fail or shut off and then return. And that's an ongoing rhythm in me. So the poem is My Sweet Crushed Angel. So this is to all and everybody who struggles to feel okay or not. You have not danced so badly, my dear. You have not danced so badly, my dear, trying to hold hands with the beautiful one. You have actually waltzed with great style. Oh, my sweet crushed angel. to have ever neared God's heart at all. Our partner is notoriously difficult to follow, and even his best musicians are not always easy to hear. So what? So what if the music has stopped for a while? So what if the price of admission to the divine is out of reach tonight? So what, my dear, if you do not have the ante to gamble for real love? The mind and the body are famous for holding the heart ransom. The mind and the body are famous for holding the heart ransom. But Hafiz knows the beloved's eternal habits. Have patience. Have patience. He will not be able to resist your longing for long. You have not danced so badly, my dear, trying to kiss the beautiful one. You have actually waltzed with tremendous style. Oh, my sweet crushed angel. So, yeah. That, when that was spoken to me that time, and my heart just opened and every bit of sobbing that was in me just released itself. And I always find it a beautiful piece to return to for the times when we make an effort and we're not gentle enough with ourselves for our efforts to hold God's hand.
Oh.
So the quaveriness is gone. The tree is solidly in the ground. Again, for a while anyway.
See, that's beautiful. And to me, that's what we're talking about.
I could bring another little piece that supports that, which is also by the same poet. I know the voice of depression calls out to you, my dear. I know that those invitations that can ruin, I know that those beliefs, I'll start again. Yeah. Let me take it for a second. I know that the voice of depression calls out to you. I know that those voices that can ruin your life still send out their invitations. But you are with a friend now, and you look so much stronger. You can stay this way and even bloom. Even bloom. Keep squeezing drops of rain and drops of sunshine from your work and your play and your music, and from your companion's beautiful laughter. Keep squeezing drops of sun from the sacred glance and touch of your beloved, and, my dear, from the most insignificant movements of your own holy body. Beware counterfeit coins that may buy you just a moment's pleasure, but then drag you for days like a broken man behind a farting camel. Keep squeezing drops of sun from your work and your play and your music. And whenever you say God's name, dear pilgrim, my ears wish that my head was absent so that they could kiss each other and applaud all your wondrous efforts. Keep squeezing drops of rain from your work and your play and your music, and from the most insignificant movements of your own holy body. So, dear friends, listen up, be wise, cast all your votes for dancing.
one of the issues I have with this medium is its, and then we discussed it, but it's its capacity to hold silence.
Okay. Yeah.
And that is what we're in relationship with. And, you know, it's a failure of technology or something when everything goes still and silent.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because, you know, it would be beautiful if everybody who's listening could be together in the same space. And even then, sometimes an anxiety can try to fill the space. And with this medium, there can be, it's not so much here for me tonight. Actually, I feel reasonably in flow, but it's me speaking and others don't have a chance to speak. But often when it's one-to-one, there's a kind of an immediacy, almost an imperative to say something. So maybe we could hold a silence for a few moments to honor what we've brought so far and trust it's okay, if that's okay with you. Yeah.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Robert Frost. Whose woods are these? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his words fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bell a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. Again, I think of Rilke, learning to love the questions. And perhaps along some distant day, we'll live into the answer. And anxiety sort of rises as, you know, I begin to think I know something or should get it right. Or even can fail. God forbid. No, I think I wrote a poem recently, actually, about the idea of nature getting it wrong. You know, and how we are so taken over by the fear of failure that it paralyzes us. and it's called, this poem's called Middle Age.
Okay.
The crazy autumn artist mixes colours as if she had nothing to lose. Uninhibited cascades of gold and rusty iron reds tumble into borders of yellows and purples touched by daring pink. As if to say, no matter what I do, I cannot get it wrong. No matter what I do, I cannot get it wrong. Such wisdom, don't you think, when summer has left us for good?
Again, please.
The crazy autumn artist mixes colours as if she had nothing to lose. Uninhibited cascades of gold and rusty iron reds tumble into borders of yellows and purples, touched by daring pink. As if to say, no matter what I do, I cannot get it wrong. Such wisdom, don't you think?
Lovely, just lovely.
When summer has left us for good. Such wisdom.
Yeah.
When summer has left us for good. Summer being the show. You know, we're not performing here. We talked about that before.
We did, yeah.
So performance anxiety, once we've kind of got over it, it's like, this isn't a performance.
Sure.
It's showing up at the crossroads and being gentle.
Did that one come out of that sense of, I'm always curious about, you know, what's kind of, what stimulated or precipitated that, you know, did it come out of toying with what failure was or how one could fail? How, you know, or was it prompted by some situation or?
Yeah, it's prompted by looking out of the window.
Okay.
And seeing the border,
Right.
you know, the flowers, and thinking, hang on, that's pink.
Yeah.
The middle of this border.
Sure.
How can you put pink there?
Yeah. So you literally had that sort of response when you saw this thing. You saw this pink and you wrote this poem. So it wasn't, you weren't struggling with the sense of whatever failure is or not. That came in the piece, or?
No, I wasn't. I mean, that's the point of the poem coming through, because that line, "Summer has left us for good," is the you know, where did that come from?
I see. Okay.
It certainly wasn't a thought of mine, but I suddenly reread it and thought, wow, summer has left us for good. It's like, that's what I feel. It's like I'm no longer having to fake this. I'm no longer having to, not that summer's fake, but it's, you know, metaphorically a show. And I don't have to do that anymore.
No. And yet, all these seasons show up and perform in a magnificent way.
Yes.
So, you know, we fully, as much as we can, feel the summer and feel the autumn, and and they are kind of permanent, but they're not, because I love that autumn kind of seduction where you get that last blast of color where you kind of expand open a bit again and you're wow, and then bang, it's the precursor to the next bit of beauty, which is much more difficult, and just, you know, the honing that happens under the earth. But actually, just as you're acclimatizing yourself to that last summer, or was it autumn, or is it winter? Then whoa, it goes again, and then such beautiful kind of like impossible seduction, isn't it? Like we do join the performance, and we are attached to the performance, and yet I don't know. Yet it's part of it, you know. It's part of it.
Definitely, we can't get to the crossroads without walking, without shoes, you know, without being here.
Yeah.
And being here means everything is here. It excludes nothing.
Well, I do love the way you go into that sort of, I don't know what it is, sort of, you have a kind of intransigent belief in yourself, but you come out with something which is totally the opposite. Like your other poem, Dropped as Rain. I said I might read it for you. I will whisper it softly. Let me remind you of the tenderness, but the fierceness sometimes of that kind of that storm also brings this, doesn't it? This is yours, yeah. Do you recognize your poem here? This is yours. Was it you?
Have it spoken back to me.
Was it you, or was it someone looking in from outside the window, wondering who the hell is this fella wondering why I should be pink? How dare he? I'll put something in his pipe tonight. And you wrote this, maybe. I will whisper it quietly. But wisdom, you tell me. But wisdom, you tell me. But wisdom, you tell me, is not the knowing of something. It's the knowing of nothing. Walking into empty rooms with doors that swing both ways. Ha. There's the man who says he's not going anywhere, standing there between the doors, swinging both ways. Mostly it's about just standing still. But occasionally, just occasionally, I love this poem of yours. It's gone into me a bit. Occasionally, just occasionally, I find myself getting pulled up into the clouds and dropped as rain. It's great. Dropped as rain. So soft. Yeah. And, you know, let me see. Got to kind of bring something straight into, it's one of Machado's, you know. Oh yes, it's beautiful. So I'll speak the one I know first. And it's all about truth, isn't it? Like what's our versions of truth and the great truth that's around at the moment. And like Cohen said recently in his last one before he died, the truth is not the truth today. So it's constantly changing. So the one I love of Machado, which is about renewal, of course, and is also, anyway, I'll say it. The wind, one brilliant day. The wind, one brilliant day, called to my soul with the odor of jasmine. In return for the odor of my jasmine, I would like the odor of all your roses. I have no roses. All the flowers in my garden are dead. I have no roses. All the flowers in my garden are dead. Well then, I'll have the withered petals and the yellow leaves and all the waters of your fountain. The wind left. And I wept, and I wept, and I wept. And I said to myself, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you? And here's a companion piece of a different order, which speaks to what we're speaking to again. There was a child who dreamed of a cardboard horse. The boy opened his eyes and couldn't see the little horse. The child had another dream of a little white horse and grabbed it by the mane. Now you will not get away. Now you won't get away. Hardly had he caught it when the boy woke up. His fist was clenched, and the little horse had flown away. The boy turned very grave, thinking a dream pony cannot be true, and he never dreamt again. But the boy became a young man, and the youth fell in love and asked his lover, "Are you real or not? Are you real or not?" When the boy grew old, he thought, all is dream. The little dream pony and the real horse. And when death came, the old man spoke to his heart, saying, "Are you a dream?" Who knows if he woke up?
Beautiful.
Oh. Such a strange thing, this, you know. It's like I'm momentarily aware of the silence of others who are listening, and the beauty of that, but also reminds me of how when the storytellers used to come in Ireland from village to village, they would know in advance, and they would usually take about 5 days, and people would all flock in, and of course half the people fell asleep, and that was always expected because they would dream another part of the story. It's lovely. So sleeping's okay.
I love that. And I love the time, the richness, and the time spent without rush. Everything now is done under the clock. Everything done, you know, under pressure. And there's no time for soul in that.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, maybe our work is about learning to slow down. Learning to still ourselves. You know, I can think about that notion of it's easier for a rich man to go through the eye of a needle. And what, for me, that rich man is that distracted man.
Yeah.
You know, distracted by riches of every variety. Distracted by the world. And the invitation here of the poets is, be still. It's not new, you know, obviously, you know, it's the mystical vision throughout time. Be still and know thyself. Be still at the crossroads. I mean, the hilarious thing is, where else are you going to be? I mean, you know, where else are you going to go? It's not like there's an option.
Plenty of distractions, though.
Plenty of distractions.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that passion of the crossroads is the same as the passion of the crucifixion.
Say more.
Well, that is exactly what that's about. You know, that staying still at the crossroads, something more becomes, I become that which I have always been. Writing poetry at dawn is my favorite time. Writing poetry at dawn is my favorite time. When light and its absence thin each other's veil. The owl in the dark wood. The moon, silver fox. And in the east, the fine line of gently fretted sky. The gap between us then is just imagination. The gap between us then is just imagination. So full of gaze and tenderness. What else is there to do in response but blossom?
Lovely invitation. Yeah. What else is there to do but blossom? Beautiful.
And a reminder in the world right now, in its chaotic state, particularly right now here for us in England, but all around the world, gripped by fear. How do we stay put? How do we show up and stay put? How do we soothe each other and remind each other? How do we, I mean, I often love the metaphor of the candle. You know, that my job is to keep my candle alight. And you can come and take light from my candle without diminishing it. That's the joy of fire. It's not diminished by what's added to it. It's inflamed.
Well, you know, it's lovely. We at best we just keep giving to each other whatever we happen to have in our back pockets at the time. We just keep bringing it out. And of course, somebody who I met many years ago when I lived in London bumped into someone who was a Tai Chi teacher down from Manchester with her daughter, and they came back for tea in the afternoon or something. And she was the first person who said to me, you know, she was a poet in movement. It's beautiful. And I might have said a poem to her, so we were giving each other something. And she said, what makes the poem throb and have heart is that someone gives it and the other receives it. So that's how we keep. I'm not bringing out an answer here, but that seems to me to be that dance between the giving and the receiving, and sometimes it's fraught with difficulty and there's too much of one or the other. And yet, as Hafiz says, in the morning when I begin to wake, it happened again. In the morning when I begin to wake, it happened again. And again and again and again. That feeling that you, beloved, had stood over me all night, keeping watch. That feeling that as soon as I began to stir, you put your lips to my forehead and lit a holy lamp inside my heart. Maybe that's a real possibility at the moment, and we're so struggling with fear. And it is, isn't it? We have it there all the time, watching over us.
And there are so many different ways of talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, we've offered up a few.
Yeah.
Our poetry and what have you, but there are so many ways of kneeling and kissing the ground.
Yeah, as you said in the opening. Yeah.
I watched I didn't do that much watching the dancing, you know, whatever it's called, you know, the competition.
Is that Billy, with Billy?
Yes, with Billy. But what there was a beautiful moment in it where he spoke to his partner.
Okay.
And it was a very deep moment where he said something like, I really love you for bringing out in me something I didn't know I had.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the gift we have for each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the gift I feel working with you. You know, well, I used to say work in a very loose sense. I mean, hanging out.
Mm. Yeah.
And I feel that actually very deeply with the Irish, actually, in a more wide sense. You know, I love the way they play music. I love their passion, their soul, and their.
Well, as I'm hearing you, I'm receiving that, to chew my own words of a few moments ago, but I'm also thinking slightly tongue in cheek, because we're great deflectors as well, isn't it? I'll bring Brendan Bean along the next time and we'll shake it all up a bit more.
Excellent.
Because sometimes what we evoke in each other is not so nice either.
Yeah, because the shadow, you know, this has to include the shadow. You know, we talk a lot about Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness does not exist without the shadow. It's born in the dark. Here we are, the longest night. The rain is pissing down outside. The mud slithering around. And yet, such beauty is here born. In fact, we've crawled towards Bethlehem in the second coming.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful to you for opening up tonight, and I have no idea where it would go, but it's felt so rich and alive. And thank you, Ayaz, and thank you to everybody who's here, whom I cannot hear. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's been wonderful sharing with you, and I hope I've really enjoyed it, and I really hope others have. And I'd like to finish with a couple of things. Firstly, a poem, and then I'd like to take us out on this beautiful piece of music that I came across recently, which is and it's the words of Psalm 131. And what I will do as I play it, if I may, is just read the words, and then everyone can listen and just quietly leave as they choose.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, Gayan. It's been a joy.
Yeah.
Lullabies. As a poet, I try not only to give you wise words, but to sing you lullabies. You see, in the end, none of us will ever understand, but we can all be melted. And I will give that one to you again. As a poet, I try not only to give you wise words, but to sing you lullabies. You see, in the end, none of us will ever understand, but we can all be melted. O Lord, my heart is not proud, nor haughty my eyes. I have not gone after things too great, nor marvels beyond me. Truly, I have set my soul in silence and peace, at rest as a child in its mother's arms. So is my soul.